Hey guys, what is up? Ralph coming at you. I just wanted to say something real quick before this concussion Q&A video and / podcast begins. And that is, if you are watching this on YouTube, we did have a little bit of trouble with the video feed and we didn't want to stop our conversation. So it does cut out about 10 minutes from the end, 10-15 minutes from the end. All of the audio is included here. But there are just a couple of points where the video does cut out and we had to kind of restart the filming. So if you want the full audio, just the audio, then be sure to go check out My Parents' Basement on SoundCloud or iTunes and download the podcast. And then you can take it wherever you go. And if you want to subscribe on iTunes and leave a review, then that would be greatly appreciated as well. But I still wanted to put this video up because I'm hoping it will be helpful and of some use to those of you dealing with PCS, and I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to let the conversation begin. Thank you guys for listening. We're recording over there as well. Let's get centered here. Let's get centered, spiritually and physically. I'm going to flip this bad boy down. Okay. You ready for this? What's up, guys? Ralph and Lou coming at you from
My Parents' Basement.
Lou's Parents' Basement. Mm-hmm. And this is a podcast. This is also a video. If you guys are listening on iTunes or SoundCloud, you can go watch the full video on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Ralph and Lou. And if you are watching this video on YouTube, you can download the audio and subscribe to the podcast at iTunes and SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/myparentsbasement and My Parents' Basement on iTunes. So the reason that we're doing multi-format for this particular podcast is we are trying to, we want the information to be accessible to as many people as possible. I would like the information to be accessible to as many people as possible. And so, if you are familiar with our vlogs, you'll know that we've been talking for quite a while about doing a concussion Q&A video, because some people who have also suffered from PCS or concussions have been asking questions on the vlog, in the comments, and on Twitter and that sort of thing. So we're finally getting to it. So for those of you watching, this vlog may not be up your alley. It's going to be a longer vlog. It's going to be a longer video. And if you have to go on the road or something and you want to listen to the audio, go check out iTunes or SoundCloud. But if you are a regular vlogging crowd and you are not interested in learning more about concussion and recovery and suffering from PCS, then I would encourage you to just stop right now, because it's going to be a half an hour plus of us rambling about concussions and our recovery process and trying to share as much information about it as possible for people who might be going through the same thing. So that is my warning. Secondly, my warning is all we have to go off here is experience. We don't have any professional education in terms of medical science or anything like that. So everything we say is just an experiential thing that we want to share. Always talk to your doctors, always see health professionals, not necessarily, as I'm sure we'll talk about, your primary healthcare provider, but whether it's a specialist or whatever. So now that we've got that out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Quite the intro.
Quite the intro.
So those who are still watching
those
and
of
listening.
You who are still with us, welcome to the post-concussion and or concussion Q&A video. And so Lou is with me today. My beautiful wife, Lou.
Hey.
And the reason Lou's with me is because I thought it was important to have someone who has the perspective of a support or a loved one who has had to deal with some of the things secondhand in post-concussion. I thought it was important to have her perspective as well. So that's why she's here, and she's going to help me chime in and make sure that I don't miss anything and correct me when my perspective is off. So
that's why I'm here.
Yeah, you're gonna. Well, yeah, and because you're a great guest and I love
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Even
That's
though,
sweet.
guys, I lost my ring today. First day of summer, I lost my wedding ring going for a swim.
Oh my goodness.
But that's another vlog or
So-
podcast, so we'll leave that at that for now.
Yes.
Okay, so
Let's get started.
do you want to just jump into some questions to start?
Yeah,
I feel like
I-
that's a good way to get into it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's
and then
just
we'll just
start.
kind of like get into our conversation. I have this giant list here of questions from you guys and just topics that we wanted to talk about. But let's just start with some questions. So first off, some background. How did you get your concussion? Okay, I've had multiple concussions and each one of them has sucked. But the last one I got wakeboarding and I got it in August of last year, 2015. August 31st, and I'm coming up on almost 300 days, and it's been about almost 10 months, and the symptoms basically didn't clear up right away. So I was wakeboarding, I kind of carved out behind the boat and caught the front of my board and went face first into the water, and something that I didn't really think that would turn into a long recovery has taken 10 months and counting. So, and obviously there's been some progression over that time, but for the first 2 or 3 months, there was zero progression. In fact, there was more regression than there was progression. So I actually went home the same day that I got my concussion, and I felt a little bit woozy, but I went to bed after editing a video, which you shouldn't do, and went to work the next day and went to work the following day, and throughout the course of the week started to just deteriorate and more symptoms and just random things started popping up, and by the end of the week I was basically stuck in bed, and for about 2 to 3 months I was mostly in bed just because the symptoms were sort of debilitating, whether they were mental symptoms or physical symptoms. I had a lot of neck pain, a lot of eye pain. I had trouble seeing. I had spots in my eyes. Trouble sleeping. I didn't sleep at all for quite some time, and I ended up on a lot of sleeping medication. And but yeah, we can get into all the details of that as we go along, I guess. But to answer that question, the concussion came from wakeboarding. And I do want to just take a second here to let you guys know that eventually I've been talking back and forth with my concussion specialist, and he is coming on the podcast. He is going to talk about concussions. We have a nice hour-long conversation set up. The first part on concussion diagnosis and symptoms, the second part on treatment and prevention and rehab and therapies and all that stuff. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to, and I will definitely share it with you when it happens. He's a busy guy, so hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll be able to make that happen. So wakeboarding is the short answer. And I had a previous one about 14 months prior to the one in August of 2015, and that one I hit my head on the support beam in a basement of a friend's house, and that one took. It did take a while to recover from it.
Maybe a few months.
It was like 2 months, and yeah. So, fun stuff.
It doesn't help to have multiple.
It does. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that question came from. Oh shoot! I'm really sorry because this is like.
You're writing?
This is literally from 4 months ago that I wrote this down, and I can't read my own writing.
It says
How did you get
Renee Kendall.
Renee Kendall. So thank you for that question, Renee.
Thanks.
Troy, does it bother you that you won't be as active after your concussion? Yes, Troy, it does. We were actually the first time in a long time. We went to the beach today. It was quiet, and I lost my wedding ring, but there were kids doing backflips off the cliff, and I was just like, man, I'm probably never going to do that again. And
I'm never gonna do that again. Probably.
Lou's never going to let me do that again.
It makes me nervous watching kids do that, but I'm sorry if you do a backflip ever again. I don't know, man.
Well,
Why would you do that? Like,
so okay, so it's two parts. One part is I feel incredibly nervous about doing it, so I probably will never do it again.
yeah.
Whether it's backflips or wakeboarding or some of the extreme stuff that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
But when you go through an experience, I mean, it's just not worth it. You know, like if it's going to put me out for a year, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So I feel a little bit frustrated and upset about that because longboarding was like my number one favorite thing to do. And I will eventually longboard again, but I don't think I'll be able to do the same sort of things that I wanted to keep doing. Just knowing the kind of stress that it would put Lou through if I were to fall again or what sort of permanent damage could happen. It's just not worth it. So I have to find other outlets, and I realized that maybe I should be stepping behind the camera and just trying to capture more life that way, let other people do the crazy things from now on, and I'll sort of step back a little bit and try and capture them artistically as much as possible. So, yes, mixed feelings. Thank you for the question, Troy. How do you feel now compared to after the accident? That's from Este Brit, or Est Brit, Est Brit. I'm always bad at pronouncing that. Is it French? Est
totally
Brit.
fine.
Okay. How do you feel now compared to after the accident? I feel much better, mucho better. I still have some visual problems, some motion processing problems, and some fogginess, disconnectedness, sort of dreamy state stuff, the odd headache. But honestly, compared to 7 months ago, it's night and day. Like there were days where I wouldn't get out of bed, and I went for like 2 complete weeks of not opening my eyes because it was just causing me so much grief. And I would literally just, like, all the lights would be off, and I would lay in bed all day, having anxiety attacks, and then going to the bathroom when I really had to pee, and just staying there until, like, hoping that something would change, which I learned in hindsight was stupid because nothing's going to change without a little bit of pushing back. And first off, so, and I want to get into this with my doctor when he's on, but he basically had me do 2 weeks of complete rest. I saw him 2 or 3 months after my accident, and at that point there was no progress made. I was seeing another sports medicine doctor. I was seeing physio. I was going to physiotherapy. I was going to chiropractic, and that stuff helped some of the physical stuff, but there were just too many symptoms hanging on, and I wasn't happy with the progress. So my mom made a recommendation for a second opinion. We went and saw him, and the first thing that he said was, stop staying in bed, go outside. He said, what did he tell me to do? 2 walks a day.
2 walks a day.
Just light walks a day. At first, I could only walk for like 10 minutes before I felt like I was going to throw up, and started to get lightheaded, and things started moving in my vision. But basically what he said was, other than your walks and your strict routine, he had me on a sleep hygiene routine and a nutrition routine. And other than that, it was just sitting outside. I could listen to whatever I want, because apparently you use 80% of your brain to process visual, for visual processing. And I think the rest is auditory. I don't know if that's an accurate breakdown, but that's basically how he explained it to me, is that your brain uses a lot more processing for your visual. So the idea was to rest the visual as much as possible, rest the other aspects of your brain, and then you can listen to music, you can listen to podcasts quietly if you have auditory problems. Like I had sensitivity to noise, and I still actually have a tinnitus, which is a ringing in the ear. But other than that, it's just basically stare at a tree and watch it grow. So for 2 weeks you do that, and then after that you can start to slowly work back into things, and it's a game of trying to find that threshold where you feel sick, and then because you don't want to just stop doing everything because you won't progress, because you kind of have to push a little bit, but not to the point of bringing on all the symptoms. I forgot what the initial question was. How did I feel compared to now compared to after the accident? Much better. And it's slowly getting better. And that's the biggest thing that is hard to get used to for those of you who are maybe suffering from PCS, is that it does take some time, especially if it hangs on, longer than 3 or 4 months. It takes some time. And you make sure... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say that can be so frustrating to hear. It
is the most
time.
frustrating thing to hear.
Oh, it's like, well, come on. How long does it need to take?
But I strongly encourage anybody who's not happy with their progress to see a specialist. And I want to get into some of the things that I did to sort of move past that initial stage. So let's move on. Can you do as much as before? Olivia 12. No, I cannot.
Not nearly, no.
I can do more now than 7 months ago. Like I said, I could only walk for a short period of time before I felt like throwing up. Stuff would move, and I had a lot of emotional problems. Staying inside in bed for that length of time and sort of being secluded, not being able to have conversations with people, it really wears you down mentally. And so a lot of people do suffer from depression and or anxiety who have concussions, and it was a big part of this this particular event for me, the emotional distress. I went to the hospital several times with anxiety attacks, and just had a hard time getting through the day sometimes, because there's certain parts of your brain, I feel like there's certain parts of your brain that allow you to feel yourself and give you some clarity and give you sort of this sense of, I don't know, I think before you hit your head, you have this kind of sense of connectedness to the world as well. And something flipped for me when I hit my head, where it was like things just kind of felt flat and black, and I didn't feel myself. And so there's this weird combination of feeling disconnected and powerless and secluded, alone, and just everything feels flat. And so there's just this depression is very, it's difficult to deal with. And were you going to say something?
I knew somebody who had a concussion not too long ago, and they said it feels like just being in limbo, like in between life and death. Like
it's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And I just thought, yeah, that's how you felt, like you were.
Yeah. It caused a lot of anxiety for me too. Like I said, I went several times to the hospital for anxiety attacks, and eventually did get prescribed some anxiety medication, and I do want to talk about that too. But the question was, can I do as much as I could before? So the answer is, can I do as much as before the concussion? No, not yet. But compared to 6, 7, 8 months ago, yes. Mm-hmm. And my hope is that I will continue to be able to do more and more and more as I continue to recover. Thank you, Olivia. Next, do you have sound sensitivity? And are there any therapies related to auditory? That was Victoria's Vlogs. Victoria's Vlogs, I believe, has also been suffering from PCS. Now, this was a couple months ago, so I hope she's feeling much better by now. But Victoria, I don't know of any sound therapies. I would recommend reading or listening to the audiobook by Norman Doidge, Dr. Norman Doidge. He's a neuroscientist. I can't remember the actual term. The Brain's Way of Healing, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. Check it out. It's a collection of recovery stories based on the concept of neuroplasticity. And there are a ton of therapies that he talks about for TBI, traumatic brain injury, and MTBI, or concussion, mild traumatic brain injury. So there might be something in there. I haven't got to that part of the book yet. And that was not the largest concern for me, so I didn't really explore that as much as maybe someone else would have. So thank you, Victoria. Are you able to look at screens very long? From Brent M. Thanks, Brent. I know this is so late, but yes, I'm looking at screens more often now. Initially, I was not looking at screens. Now I can look at screens for up to a few hours a day. I'm usually averaging between 3 and 4. My work normally requires a full day, so I'm not quite there yet, but making huge strides. So thank you, buddy. And Brent, thank you for all your lovely, kind words on the vlogs and on Twitter. On Twitter? I can't remember if you're on Twitter as well, but you always have really nice comments on the vlogs and very supportive, and we appreciate that. We appreciate you sharing your experience as well, because I know you've gone through some tough stuff. Alrighty, moving on. So we got a few more recent questions that I wanted to get to. One is particularly long, so I'm going to leave that till last. Jeff Kleinman said, what things did you find most helpful to deal with PCS? So one thing that I found hugely helpful was a second opinion, because when you feel like you're not making progress and the medical system is not listening to you, get a second opinion, because you just feel like no one believes you, and because of the unique circumstances of concussion, it's an injury that people can't visually see. And a lot of the suffering happens internally, like I said, mentally, or you can't see when someone has a visual impairment. You can't see when someone's motion perception is off, or when things move for them visually, or when they have ringing in their ears. It's all stuff that people can't see, and oftentimes people will go to the emergency room, at least in Canada, or in my experience, and if they have a concussion, they'll just say, go home and rest. Well, yes, that is one of the ways that you can recover, but there are definitely more things in the field of neuroplasticity and vestibular rehabilitation. Excuse me, it's a mouthful. Vestibular rehabilitation and neurooptometric rehabilitation. Those are all fields that most. I'm not going to say most, because that's too much of a general statement. A lot of medical doctors that you might find in the ER room or primary healthcare providers might not know about. So get a second opinion, because it's really important to feel at ease mentally, because once I was able to go outside, it relieved so much stress, right? Once I could get out of the house and go, once I was permitted to have some of my life back, is what I'm trying to say. And sometimes you need a second opinion in order to do that. So get a second opinion. That was one of the most helpful things. Number 2, vestibular rehabilitation was one thing I mentioned. That was hugely helpful. And it sucks first, because it makes you really sick. Well, it can, depending on your symptoms. It made me sick. But you got to push through.
Can you kind of describe what it is?
Yeah, for those of you watching, one of the exercises was, so I had to put my thumb, for the listeners, I'm going to describe this to you. I had to put my thumb directly in front of my face, and the idea is to focus on my thumbnail and then shake my head side to side, back and forth for 15 seconds. And I would do that. So once you're done, after 15 seconds, you stop, because beyond 15 seconds, you'll get sick, whether you have a concussion or not. So after 15 seconds, you stop, wait for the symptoms to clear. Normally, the room would continue spinning, and I would feel sick. So I'd kind of wait for that to clear, die down a little bit, and then do it again. And I would do it 5 times. Then I would go sideways with the thumb and go up and down. And the idea is to strengthen your VOR, or your vestibulo-ocular reflex. And I'm not smart enough to remember what it controls. It has something to do with your eye movements and your brain and your balance, obviously your brain. But it helps retrain that and re-strengthen it. And it seems to be effective, particularly for people with balance problems, or some of the visual problems it helped with as well, nausea. So vestibular rehabilitation is something you should definitely look into. And that is sort of what the doctor that I want to have on, my concussion specialist, that's what he gave me as a treatment. Thirdly, neurooptometric rehabilitation. There are different words, different ways of describing it, but basically specialized glasses and vision therapy is what it is. I'm wearing these special glasses. They have a tint in them. I have less problem with light sensitivity, but it's hugely helpful when you're in the first stages, because the light can bring on headaches and other symptoms. So they can give you a transition lens. When you're inside, it's lighter. When you're outside, it's darker. And I still have that. They also put in prisms, which reflect the light differently and helps retrain different synapses or something in your brain. Again, I don't know the jargon, but something like that. So those are three things that I found hugely helpful. And more things that are hugely helpful, because I want to give you guys as much as possible. Sleep hygiene, having a routine is so hugely helpful. Nutrition has been a major part for me. Meditation has been a huge part for me for mental. And meditation initially didn't work, because remember how I talked about that sort of flat black feeling where you feel disconnected? It's hard to tap into that when you're meditating with that symptom. It's very it's distracting. Oh, stopped recording.
Why?
Okay, we're recording again. I don't know where that stopped, but okay. We'll carry on.
Sometimes you find meditation in the right spot. Sometimes you don't, you know?
Yes. So just as a quick aside, for those of you watching the video, I'm going to encourage you to go check out the audio format, because the camera did die halfway through this, so you might have missed something. If you want the full conversation, be sure to check out My Parents' Basement on iTunes or SoundCloud. Okay, back to the conversation.
Yeah.
Meditation. Yeah, it was really tough to kind of tap into that that area initially, meditation, because you kind of feel flat and disconnected. But at some point, it will be helpful. So nutrition, sleep hygiene, and meditation, along with the first three that I recommended, were getting a second opinion and vestibular rehabilitation and neuro-optometric rehabilitation, or some variation of that third one, some eye vision therapy with new prescription lenses, particularly for those people who are having visual problems. Breather. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your question, Jeff. Appreciate it. I hope that was a sufficient answer. Okay, honey, can you read the next question off here? I'm just going to have a drink. My mouth's dry.
Whatever happened to your concussion Q&A video?
No, sorry. That was also Jeff. Thank you for the reminder, Jeff. I needed that kick in the butt. This one.
Can you talk about how the recovery from your previous concussion compares to this one?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned that briefly, that the one prior to this one sounds so silly. I've had a handful of concussions, and the previous one where I hit my head off the basement ceiling, the symptoms for that one initially were much stronger, and I was also very concerned about my well-being with that one. But it cleared up, like within the first 2 weeks of resting. A lot cleared up. Mm-hmm. The visual problems kind of hung on a bit, but within 2 months, I was starting to feel like a lot more like myself, and within 3 months, I was back to normal, I think.
Yeah, I would say so too. I remember 2 months kind of being like, you're better now.
Yeah, and you can watch that on the vlogs. Actually, they're there. It's from 2014 in July, I believe, and about 2 months. I think we went back and watched the vlogs, and it was about 2 months I was feeling better. Mm-hmm. So how does it differ from the last one? Well, after the last one, I rested significantly. After this one, I didn't. And apparently that is a huge determining factor in the length of your recovery, or it can be. I sort of ignored my symptoms and kept trucking because I had bills to pay and things to do and a wife to support. And that bit me in the ass. But rest is super important, especially in the early stages. And so that's how it differs. Thank you for your question. What?
Yeah, I can't stress that enough. Like, rest, stay away from the screens.
Right.
Like, I know I feel like in most cases, concussions typically don't last that long. Am I wrong in saying that?
I don't remember the statistics, but most people usually recover from a concussion within the first 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then once it goes beyond that point, it's called post-concussion syndrome, I think.
Yeah. But it seems to be that not always, but a lot of people that get concussions are very active, so it's hard for them to just lay and be still and rest their brain. Like resting your brain isn't sitting down and watching television. It's not sitting and even reading a book. That's not resting your brain, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I find it like so important to do that.
And this is why it's really good to see someone who specializes in this, because when I first went to the sports medicine doctor, I didn't get a lot of details. I didn't get a lot of strict outlines. But when I went and saw my concussion specialist, he literally printed out my sleep hygiene list. He printed out general guidelines for nutrition. He printed out my vestibular exercises and what rest looks like. It's no screens. It's no reading. I wasn't allowed to read books or anything, because it was my eyes I had a lot of trouble with my eyes and focusing and strain and that sort of thing. So it meant no reading, it meant no screens. It means limited conversation with people, and most of the time one-on-one, or like maybe two people if they are quiet, because your brain can't handle the stimulation and it can't heal without that rest. So it's super, super important. And even if you're like, I was 2 or 3 months in when I saw him, and he still wanted me to follow those guidelines. He still wanted me to take 2 weeks of complete rest, even though I had rested completely for much longer than that prior. He wanted to start fresh, rest, 2 weeks, complete brain rest. So what does that look like? It's no screens, no reading, minimal conversation, maybe one-on-one, but light conversation, and just 2 small walks a day. You can listen to music, you can listen to podcasts, and then just watch a tree grow. Pull up a chair in the backyard and watch a tree grow for the rest of the day. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. But you know what? It's better to do it for 2 weeks than for 2 years, or, and this is one thing that I've really tried to drive home for people who have had concussions since, is like, you better rest. And they're like, oh, I don't have time to rest. And I was like, well, if you don't have time now, you're going to be forced to rest.
Yeah.
Or you could be. I mean, my circumstance might be unique, but clearly it's not, because a lot of people have reached out and said, we're going through the same thing. So
Yeah.
to those of you who might be listening, who, if you ever get a concussion, take at least a couple days and just do nothing, like, and see where things go, because you don't want to. 2 weeks off is better than, like, it was more than 6 months before I returned to work, and I'm still not even at half time. So I would way rather, in hindsight, have rested completely for 2 weeks off work and then been back to work full time. But instead, here I am almost 10 months later, and I'm still not back to half-time work. So you kind of have to think about it that way. And yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you. Was that Zealandonia that sent that one? Zealandonia?
Yeah.
Thank you. And then we have a bit of a longer one here, but I do want to just talk about it quick.
Have you read this one?
Yeah.
You kind of have
Do you want me to read it through? Or do you want to read it?
that whole thing?
Yeah. Hi, guys. Okay, so this is from Love and Joy Peace. She's on YouTube, and she commented on our video and said, "Hi, guys. I'm looking forward to your Q&A. In particular, whether it matters if you've had a minor or major concussion, do symptoms usually appear for the same or both?" This is a question that I would ask a professional, because symptoms can vary for everyone, and apparently duration doesn't necessarily mean major or minor either. Like if you have a minor concussion, they can still last for long periods of time. So that's something that I would probably address to a healthcare provider or professional specialist or whatever. My daughter has had a fall where she fell and hit her head hard, lying and landed face down. Oh gosh, only 10 at the time, but you can imagine, freaked out. No kidding. She blacked out for almost 10 minutes, then came to. She lost her sight. Called 911. She hit an optic nerve. Temporary loss of sight. That's scary. And I wonder, that's really scary if she completely lost her sight. I had a lot of trouble with my sight initially, and I wonder if it had something to do with the optic nerve. But it sounds like your daughter really sort of shook that part of her head. So again, those are sort of things for someone who more what's the word I'm looking for?
Educated?
Educated, qualified.
Qualified, yeah.
Nothing was prescribed but to take some time off work. Oh, she had another one. Now we move years forward. She fell at work on the worst and first day of the biggest ice storm, and of course she slipped and hit her head on the front gigantic metal doors. Brutal. Blacked out, went to see her doctor. Nothing was prescribed, but she took some time off work. While she was recovering through, I noticed a change of mood swings, behavior were out of sync in ways I hadn't seen. Lou's nodding her head, for those of you listening.
Oh.
As if I was there, but she wasn't really there. Yeah, again,
Yeah.
it's that feeling of disconnectedness and the irritability. Irritability is a huge one, and I'm really sorry for that, honey, but
No, it's okay.
it's one of the symptoms, like
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but you just kind of, you don't feel yourself, you feel disconnected, you have high anxiety, your body's in fight or flight, and you're just sort of on edge all the time.
Yeah.
And you can get really moody, you can get really sad, and you can see that in some of the earlier vlogs too. I would just break down crying at the smallest things. Sorry, I was just making sure everything's recording still.
Yeah, you probably felt like this is her daughter.
Yeah.
Probably felt like it wasn't your daughter. You just I felt like Ralph was not there. It's an awful feeling to feel that way towards a loved one.
And I felt
where
like I was
are
there
you?
either,
Yeah.
It's weird. And I feel like Lou, it was probably like living with a different person, because normally I'm really upbeat and happy and driven, and it was just like I felt so flat. That's just the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
She went back to the doctor. All they told her was to rest her head and take a couple of Tylenol, not too much activity for about a week. She was wanting to eat. Focusing was hard, and she felt really depressed. Would that be considered a classic concussion or just a minor one? Those are all symptoms that I experienced. I don't know I don't know how it's classified. I don't know if there's a particular subset of symptoms from TBI to concussion. Normally what they refer to TBI is as sort of like a traumatic brain injury, and an MTBI or concussion is a smaller one. And guys, it looks like our battery's dying on the camera, so again, I'm going to encourage you to go check out the audio. I'm really sorry that we don't have a more professional setup for this, but if you guys are watching the video, please go check out the podcast, because I want you guys to have as much information as possible. But yeah, just as a warning, it may die soon. So, all right. Yeah, that's it. That's what happened to me. I went to the doctors. They said, take Tylenol for headaches and rest. And again, this is why I really strongly recommend you get a second opinion or you get a third opinion, and make sure that you're doing your research or having, it was really nice to have Lou help with some research as well, because, I can look at screens, and I just didn't, I was so anxious that I just didn't leave bed sometimes, so it was kind of nice to have someone there to help you with that stuff. But even your doctors, question them, because they're not all trained in everything, right? They have sort of generic information on some of these things, but they can't be a specialist at everything. So go see a specialist, go see someone who has experience or past patients who have recovered, and make sure that you're getting that second opinion, because it's really important. Behavior was out of sync. Yeah. She never really followed up with the doctor again. Work was waiting for her, and I think she just pushed through best she could, but I did see the residual effects it was having on her demeanor, and truly believe it was a result of several small yet significant concussions. Any suggestions as to how to best deal with those feelings when you're not feeling well, dizzy, and just down? Honestly, regardless of how long ago you've had your concussion, if you think that there are residual effects, go see one of those specialists check out vestibular rehabilitation if you're having dizziness. There are lots of balance clinics that you can check out. I know it's a little bit different in the US because of the healthcare situation, but hopefully you have some sort of insurance that can help you with that, or maybe benefits through work. I don't know. But definitely check those things out. Just because it happened a long time ago doesn't mean your brain fully healed from it. You know, like, and even the glasses thing. In terms of mood, I would suggest nutrition was a huge one for me. Make sure you're getting proper nutrition, eliminating sugars, and possibly think about cutting back on grains. Do some research there. It has a huge effect. Sleep hygiene again, meditation. Meditation is huge for anxiety and depression. Walks, get your walks in, get your exercise, and whenever the symptoms come on, notice those and just kind of be aware of them when they're there. And then you can also kind of relay that information to your specialist when you're there, and it's a lot of help for them as well to kind of monitor things. All right. I think that was all of the question that Love and Joy and Peace.
Anna.
Thank you for your question, Anna. Appreciate it, and I hope your daughter is doing better. And if she's not, I really hope that you can use some of this information to help her out too. Okay, so I think those are all the questions. Thank you guys for sending in the questions. What else did we want to talk about? I know we're getting pretty good along for time here, so we might have to do a part 2 at some point. But I do want to give a shout out to my brother Jose Martinez, and thank you, buddy, for DMing me on Twitter and hanging out on the webs, giving me some support. And it's been nice to have some people reach out through the vlogs and Twitter and that sort of thing to relate to, and people who have emailed us as well, ralphandlou@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Lou is here, and I feel like I've talked her ear off, so I feel like maybe she should offer some insight for those people who are maybe spouses or significant others, or just support people for someone suffering from PCS. Because, okay, sometimes when I talk about this stuff, I just feel like I'm blowing it way out of proportion. But then when I kind of look back at how things were and how bad
It totally
stuff
is
was,
not.
it was really tough, guys. Like, okay, I'm gonna be real honest with you. There were several days that I called Lou at work, just lying on the ground in total anxiety and depression, and just bawling my eyes out, and needing her to come home. And it was scary for me, but I feel like it puts an incredible amount of pressure and stress on your loved ones, and it feels like it's not fair, but I was really lucky to have Lou there, and don't take your loved ones for granted, because when you have those situations, you need them. And but yeah, I wanted to get Lou's perspective on what significant others or friends or family of people who might be dealing with it. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have anything?
Ooh. Yeah, like looking back, I don't really like to look back.
I know it's
to
hard.
like 7 months ago, because the worst days were, or even the nights being woken up to Rolf just screaming my name, and I just had to like comfort him to go back to sleep, or when he'd have major anxiety, and I just talked to him about Fiji, and for some reason that seemed to work and calm him down. But I think what was hard was not knowing when it would end. Like every single day, it was like, when am I going to get my husband back? Like it's really difficult. And I actually did look into like trying to find a support group for like wives that had husbands that had post-concussion syndrome, because I was like, I I don't know if I'm like strong enough to be able to handle this. We just lost the camera.
We just lost the video. Uh, sorry to interrupt, Lou. Guys, if you are, I guess it doesn't matter if you're listening because
Yeah, just we'll send
we'll
them
just
to
continue
the
on.
podcast.
All right.
Yeah,
We'll just link to the podcast.
that works.
All right. Sorry,
Is that
guys.
fine?
Yeah, that's totally fine. We are not professional here. That's totally fine.
What was I saying? When when you feel like you're the main support for somebody, it can be. I didn't realize how really stressed out I was. Like it was stressful for me because I didn't know. Every day I wanted you to be better, but like when you weren't, I was like, what am I gonna do? How I can't be this strong. But like I think you just have to, you know what? You're in it together. If you love this person, you got to be strong for them. I don't know, just keep your chin up sort of thing is kind of how I got through it.
Find other people, find other
Yeah.
people to support you through it.
Yeah. And a big thing that Ralph would do too was he knew that I needed days just to get out. And he would just say, like, go out with your mom, go out with your friends, like just go out and be yourself. Cause I couldn't take him with me. And that was really hard. I felt like our life was just so weird. Like we couldn't do what we normally would have done, you know, go out and have a drink at a
Yeah.
pub or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely take time for yourself if you're supporting someone who's struggling. Like don't forget to take time for yourself to, because if they need you, then you need to be strong, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
And you will definitely burn out, I think, if you don't do
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And I in hindsight, I wish that I had that you had more of an outlet with friends, or I wish that I didn't need to rely on you so much, because I just felt like a child, really.
wow.
And I feel like I could have let you do more, or I don't know.
But it's hard because
It's hard in hindsight.
yeah, I just felt like go to work, finish as soon as I could, and then get home to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I felt like you needed me.
Yeah. I think it's been hugely helpful to have Lou's parents and my parents. We're in the same town now, and that's why we're in the basement. And that was a huge help. I don't think we would have lasted too long if we didn't
No.
have it.
Yeah. No.
Because I couldn't really help. Like I wasn't able to help at all moving out of the apartment. I never even saw the apartment because we moved into the Lou's parents' basement, and I never really said goodbye to the apartment. But Lou went there after work every day and packed things up, and basically her and her dad moved the entire place minus a couple things that, well, not just a couple things. We had some friends that loaded up a truck for us, and we really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Sam and Scott. So thank you guys for that. But had we not had that, I think it would have been really straining on our relationship too.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know how we would have gone on. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, yeah. Sometimes you just need more people to help you out. Like, yeah. I don't know what else to say.
Okay. Well, I mean, I still have it. We are 47 minutes in, and I still got a ton on here, so I'm sure we can probably address some of it another time. I do. I talked a little bit about so I'm being vulnerable, and we're being honest here about some of the problems that we faced, and it's hard because like I don't want to be too, I don't want to get too vulnerable, and well, that's not true. I want to be vulnerable. I don't want to be too sad and depressing, because it's just not my nature. But like, if I'm going to be vulnerable and honest with you, I do want to just bring up the idea of suicide, and just the thoughts that can go through your head when you're in a state of concussion, a state of depression and anxiety. And a lot of people do have those thoughts. And some people act out on those thoughts, as you've probably seen or heard of in the news with professional athletes who have commit suicide. And it's a very real thing. And it is something that sort of haunted me in the earlier months, once I realized I wasn't getting better, and just sort of that disconnectedness and that flatness, combined with anxiety and just that feeling like I was draining my loved ones and not getting better. And it was something that I struggled with. And I found myself at times in a really dark place on my own, out going for a walk where I just thought about not coming home, and whatever that might have looked like. I don't need to get into details, but like there were days where I just was kind of weighing my options of how I might just, put an end to it. And I think it's really important to know about that because, I've been lucky enough to have the support of family and Lou, and get the right treatment, get, good support. And I think that if you don't have that, things could turn out differently. So for the loved ones who are taking care of someone with PCS, or just make sure, like, if somebody is going through post-concussion syndrome, it doesn't mean that they're going to commit suicide. It doesn't mean that they're automatically thinking about ending it, but just be open to their conversation. And
That's important.
it's, yeah, I don't know.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one thing when I did a lot of research for Ralph, I said, I found those things out about suicidal thoughts. And I just straight up said to Ralph, like, you need to talk to me just about all of these thoughts that you get, just in case. I just want to know. You need to talk to me about it. And so I think right from the beginning, you were open with me. And that's really important, because
Yeah.
you just, because I knew it wasn't you. I felt like it was something out of your control, in a way.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird, right? Because it's my brain. But yeah, I mean, we did say right up front, and I think this is one of the things that really helped us, was like, we got to be completely honest about what's happening here. And I wanted to be completely honest about what I was feeling. And I wasn't always completely honest, because as you can tell, just talking about it now, I'm stumbling over my words, because it's a really tough thing to talk about, especially now that I feel like I'm beyond that. In hindsight, it feels like I was being foolish or silly, but like, when you are in that state of mind, it's just different. It's different, and it's a struggle, and it's a real thing, and it needs to be talked about, because if it's not, then it won't stop. Like, I don't know how much of an epidemic it is, and I don't want to sound like I'm blowing things out of proportion, but it is something that really, really burdened me in the early stages of concussion recovery. And I just think it's important to bring it up and say, like, make sure that you're getting, there are people to talk to, there are therapists, there are support groups. And, one of the things that I think I this podcast has been helpful that way too, but I started that sort of after I'd kind of gone outside of that. But make sure that you're surrounded by friends and family is basically what I'm trying to say. And find someone that you can talk to, whether it's, via the internet, but preferably someone who you can talk to in person and relate to, whether it's a professional or just someone who's close to you or whatever. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, hon?
So
Should we end on that note?
let's end on that
I don't think we should
happy
end
note.
on that note. So here's the plus side, guys. Like I said, I don't want to be depressing. I don't want to sound like... I always get this feeling like...
Well, it's important to share these things.
I know it's important, being vulnerable is hard. Being honest is hard. And I'm only doing it because I want people to get through this. And it's shitty, and there's no other word to use. It's just shitty. And I want to help people get through it, and I want people to feel positive about it, and I want people to come out on the other side a better person than the person they were going into it. And that's where I feel like I am. I feel that's where Lou is. And I'm sorry. I am crying on my podcast. Yeah. All right. Well, so thank you guys for listening. I really hope that somebody finds this helpful, and I hope that you find this podcast helpful. I hope that you'll find the conversation with my doctor helpful. I hope that you find the conversations with other people inspiring. I hope that you find our vlogs inspiring if you watch our vlogs. Because I'm not crying on the internet for fun. Okay? I really do want to help people with this thing that has really changed my life and Lou's life in some ways for the better, but not without struggle. So feel free to tweet any questions that you have. This is something that I'm still working through. So I'm not on the other side yet. I'm close. I can feel it. But like I said, there are still some things that are there. So let me be your friend in this journey. I sound like a friggin'... Oh, gosh. Yeah, no, but seriously, I want to help people through this because I feel like I've been lucky enough, I've been blessed enough, even though I hate that word, I've been blessed enough to have support through this, and I know not everybody has that. So if you have any questions, if you need to be pointed in any direction, I will do my best to help you. You can email me at ralphandlou@gmail.com. That's what Lou and I use as our main email address. And you can tweet at us on Twitter. And of course, you can always check out our videos, and we try and respond to comments as much as possible. So thank you guys all for listening. And again, I hope you really appreciate, I hope you get something from this. And I would love to hear from you if you do. And whether it's this episode or the next episode, if you find anything interesting or encouraging about this, I really want your feedback. So let me know. Thank you guys for listening, and perhaps we will do another podcast like this at some time, and we'll see. This is number 10. This is the 10th podcast. So this concludes the experimental 10. What a way to end it, eh?
Yeah.
I'm bawling my eyes.
Ending with tears.
But I've still got a couple more guests, and I am gonna do them. And I want to know whether you guys want to keep listening. So let me know. Get at me on the webs. I've said enough. Thanks for listening, Lou.
Bye, guys. Thanks for listening. I hope you learned something.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all.
Thank you, Lou, for being awesome and sitting with me through this entire thing. I'm sorry. All right, guys. Ralph and Lou signing off from my parents' basement. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes. Okay, love you. Bye.